You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. All right, hello, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I am so glad you're here. I have taken a week off, so last week we didn't have a podcast episode, but I'm excited to be back, and this episode is a good one. I'm excited to present it to you. It's been something I've been thinking about for a while. I want to open up today's episode with something that actually recently happened on a coaching call not too long ago, because I think it's going to hit close to home for a lot of you, actually. So I was on, we call it a mindset coaching call. It's hosted inside of our Backpacking Badass program. And so our Backpacking Badass members can attend this. We host kind of a more intimate call like this at least once a month inside of our community. And one of my clients, and we'll call her Mary for the sake of this episode, she raised her hand to get some coaching. And when I asked her what was going on, she said, I have these two big adventure goals and I just have no motivation to actually do anything about them. So on the surface, it sounds like a motivation problem. Like that's what she was coming to get coaching on. She wanted me to help her feel more motivated. She wasn't feeling it. She felt like she needed a kick in the pants, maybe a really good pump up playlist. But, you know, as we do in coaching, we dug deeper. And that's what I love about coaching. It becomes really clear that motivation isn't actually the big problem. What's actually happening was something so much more interesting and so much more common, and honestly, a lot more fixable as well. So Mary, she had been doing all the things, doing all the research, looking at websites. She had the goal in mind. She was watching YouTube videos. She was inside of our program doing the lessons. She was posting in the community, asking, for help when she needed it, reading everyone's responses, but she hadn't taken one single concrete step towards her actual goal. So she wasn't getting the permits. She hadn't started her training plan. She also didn't really officially have dates on her calendar. And then she also had a whole list of reasons why, right? Like her knee, her shoulder, her schedule. She even mentioned COVID, which I think she said to herself, like, how long ago was that now? Which I can totally relate to, because I'm also like, yeah, COVID a couple years ago, right? But it's actually been a while since 2020. So what she was describing, on our coaching call, it wasn't truly a lack of motivation. It was a nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, to keep her safe, keep her comfortable, keep her exactly where she is. And all the research and, the quote unquote getting ready had become a really sophisticated and really convincing form of really just staying stuck and staying put. And I know so many of you might be able to relate to this, like, oh yeah, I've definitely done what Mary's doing before. So today, what I want to do in this call, in this podcast episode, is really just a mid-year check-in with everyone. I know we're not quite at the mid-year mark, but it's almost, we're almost 5 months in, believe it or not. It's almost May. And many of you set a goal back in January or maybe February. Maybe you even attended my Your Adventure Era challenge that we hosted in January, and you decided like this is going to be your year that you start backpacking, and you were super excited about it in January. Or maybe you even like have had a goal that's been sitting in the back of your mind for the last 3 years or multiple years, and somewhere between then and now you've lost momentum momentum, or you never even really got started. And I want to help you figure out why and dig into some of the most common reasons that I see. And this is not so I can guilt trip you. That is never my intention. I never am about shame or guilt tripping. It's also not for me to be telling you what you should be doing, because I don't believe in shoulds. It's because I genuinely want to help you do the things that you say you want to do. And I believe that when you understand the real reasons that you're stuck, it can change everything, and the path forward becomes so much more clear. It won't make it like, obviously, like doing hard things and achieving big goals is going to have its own version of hard, but it doesn't have to be, we don't have to let our minds keep us from moving forward in the ways that we do. So there's so many tools and resources that you have available, and I'm going to be kind of introducing you to some of those things. Now, before we get into the reasons, I have about 6 reasons I want to go through today. Here's the truth about adventure goals, and really any big goal, is that they tend to have a honeymoon phase. So January, when it rolls around, you're fired up, you write down your goals, maybe you're telling people, maybe you post it in the community, maybe you put it on a bingo card. You've got the vision and the energy, and you're filled with all kinds of possibility. And then as the month rolls along, and as I like to tell my clients, life is lifing. And that trip, that felt so real in the beginning and exciting in January, it can start to feel like this really vague thing that you said you wanted to do once. And that's how we slowly file those things under someday or next year, or we start telling us, oh, we need more time. We need more time, and we've lost it, and we'll have to do it next year. This is how we keep putting things off. And, that someday is definitely where your dreams go to die. And I say that with so much love. I want to help you start taking action this year, this summer. And it's not too late to recommit and double down. So if you set an adventure goal and you're not where you thought you'd be now, this episode is for you. And if things are going great and you're right on track, honestly, still listen, because these reasons do tend to cycle back around. We are humans with human brains. They're going to come up for us, every now and then. So it's nice to kind of have a frame of reference to tap back into. So I'm going to walk you through 6 reasons that I see women stall on their adventure goals. And I'm talking from years of coaching women through this exact experience. These are not theoretical reasons. I've seen every single one of these play out in real women and real calls in our communities and in myself, okay? So let's dive in. I want to actually start off really quick before we dive in with a personal story of mine, and kind of relate this back to what I've been experiencing as well around this, and the whole concept of stalling around your adventure goals. So at the beginning of the year, I set a big kind of Misogi goal for myself, which Misogi goal is basically something that you feel like it's almost like a 50-50 chance of achieving. It's a really big stretch goal, for me. And my big goal is to lead climb a 512 outside, no falls, and do it clean. My first 512 climb, it's a hard climb. And I actually set this goal back in August of 2025, but again, I just kind of doubled down on it in January. If you're curious to understand why I'm choosing that goal a little bit more, I did do an episode all about it. It's episode 60, called Chasing My Boldest Climbing Goal Yet and Choosing Desire Over Discipline. So if you want to dive into that more, you can go into that episode. But I am in the messy middle of my Misogi goal, right? So some weeks I'm experiencing some big wins, I'll have a really good training day at the gym. I can think back on a few weeks ago where I went bouldering and it felt like I was just flashing V5s. And that doesn't happen for me as often. It usually takes me a lot longer. And I was wow, I'm feeling really strong. I would making progress on a certain climb that used to be hard for me. I remember my friend Charlie and we have started playing on 512s. So we're going on 512s already and we're leading them, but it's, we're not doing them clean. We're hanging at a bolt or taking lead falls and stuff like that. And I remember we did one back in August when we first kind of set this goal. And Charlie's my climbing partner, by the way. But when we first set this goal, we went to the same climb, this 512. It's called Freeform. It's on the Shelf Road. And we did it once and it was fun, but there were so many parts of it that we just like didn't quite understand how to do. It felt too hard. And we went a few weeks ago back to get on it, and we hadn't been on it since. And we just blew ourselves away with how much stronger we felt, and the things that felt hard felt like we were able to unlock them so much easier. So now we have like the whole climb pieced together. We just would have to do it in one go. Like that's going to take, now our next level on that is like building the endurance. But that was a big win for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing the progress. And you know, some weeks I'm hitting my meal planning and I'm hitting my training really strong. And another really big win that just happened for me this past weekend is I hit a milestone climb for me. So I led my first 511A and A/B is what it was, without falls. Like, again, I've been leading 11s already, but I've been having to project them a little bit more. Like, been not having enough endurance or not having the technical skills enough to do it without falls or hanging. But I finally did my first one this weekend, and it's a project that I've been working on since the beginning of the year. So that was super, super satisfying. But as it goes, it hasn't been all wins as well. Like some weeks I definitely feel like I'm stalling and I'm falling behind and it's too hard, right? So I lately, the past like month, have been in just a really busy work season. We just opened up enrollment for our Adventurous Reinvention experience. We have a really big summit coming up in June, which takes a lot of prep work, in particular because I'm also going to Greece like in a week from now for another client trip. So I'm going to be gone for like a week and a half. So I had a lot of work that I needed to do up front so that I can really be present for that trip and not feel so stressed when I get back. And yeah, it's just been hard to go hard some weeks. Like when we opened up the Adventurous Reinvention experience, I was working 50 plus hour weeks. And, you know, the only thing I was doing is working. And then I would go to the climbing gym and do a couple hours, like a few times a week. And then maybe I would have like a half day outside. So really just climbing and working. I didn't have a room for a lot more. I felt like my food planning kind of fell to the wayside, and it's okay. Like I just gave myself that grace, but sometimes it can be hard on myself. You're like, I'm not showing exactly how I want to. My training sessions are a bit shorter. I'm more tired, but I had to kind of reprioritize things. I also got a finger injury last week. My climbing partner, ironically, also got a finger injury. We're blaming a V6 at our climbing gym that tweaked both of our fingers. Mine, fortunately, that one recovered pretty quickly. So it hasn't been a huge stopper, but it's also like, one of those things that can happen. Weather has thwarted several outdoor weekends we had planned because it wasn't supposed to rain, and then it rained all day, and those were the only days we could go outside. So that's been a thing. And then sometimes progress does feel really slow. Like it feels like you're showing up every single week and you're not making any progress. So each week I have had to come back to my goal and like redecide and build back my desire and recommit to it. Or else, like, I can let those stalling weeks or the weeks that I feel behind, I can really let them weigh on me and drag me down deeper into a pit. So this work is constant refinement and recommitment, and desire is a huge part of it. I'm going to dig into that more in this episode. And like, I'm constantly like, because this goal is so huge and it's a big journey for me, like I'm constantly looking at like ways I can recommit and rebuild my desire. So, like for example, I actually last week reached out to a climbing coach for extra support for when I get back from Greece, because I need to start taking my training seriously again, doing some more steep climbing to get better endurance. I also have a really big trip planned into Red River Gorge in the fall. I've been building some desire by like researching climbs I want to get on in the Red River Gorge in the fall. So all kinds of things. Like it's an ebb and flow process. And I want to dig into, I know a lot of you don't have climbing goals. A lot of you here for hiking and backpacking. So I want to dig into that. Like I want to dig into the 6 reasons that I see women stall on their adventure goals a little bit more. And I've alluded to some in my own personal story above, but I want to make this more real for you and give you some solutions. Okay. So first, the reason number 1 is, that kind of lacking motivation feeling. And I want to talk about what's underneath it. So let's start with the one my client Mary said. And again, it's motivation. She said, I'm just not feeling motivated. And I hear this a lot, in different formats and coaching calls in the community. And I want to offer you a reframe around this lacking of motivation because I think it can change everything. Most of us, what I actually personally believe is we never really have a motivation problem. What we have is a desire problem. So here's what I mean. Motivation, feeling motivated, it is a feeling. And feelings are created by our thoughts, what we're thinking. So when we say, I don't feel motivated, what we're really saying is the thoughts I'm currently having about this goal are not producing the feeling of motivation. Motivation is a feeling. That's it. That's the whole thing. So here is the powerful distinction that we can make. We often want something, but we haven't turned that want up loud enough to actually drive action. There's wanting something a little bit, and there's really wanting something. The way that you show up to those 2 different things is completely different. So here's what I asked Mary to do in our coaching call. And here's what I want you to do as well. I want you to get really honest about why your goal matters to you. And not just the surface level answer like, I want to go backpacking, but I want you to dig deeper into the real answer underneath that. And that's going to take effort and energy, but it's worth it. What does this trip represent? Who do you get to be on the other side of it? What does it prove? What does it feel like to imagine yourself there? What does the trip open up for you? What kind of possibilities or identities unlock for you? Think about all of these things. Dig deep into it. Spend a lot of time with it. Because for most women that I work with, the backpacking trip really isn't about just the backpacking. It's about something so much bigger. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about reclaiming a part of yourself you put on the back burner for years. And it's about finally doing something just for you. And when you tap into that, the real why, not just backpacking, but the real why, motivation stops being something that you wait to feel, and it starts being something that you deliberately create. Like, I am doing this because I'm reclaiming a part of myself that I've put on the back burners for years. That thought is going to create a feeling of motivation. So one of my favorite practices, especially in those seasons when I feel like I'm losing steam, is to even just start my day off by asking myself, why do I want this? Why does this matter? Why is this worth doing, right? Not once, I do this daily, like re-tapping into that desire every single day, just like you're watering a plant, even though we don't water plants every single day, but you get what I'm saying. Because the goal isn't going to water itself, and we have to get better at producing desire on purpose because our brains are trained to do the opposite. So you don't have a motivation problem, you have a desire problem, and that's an easy fix. Well, easy in the sense that we have tools to re-tap back into our desire, okay? So the second reason is, and this one might, hit home just a little bit. Maybe you're listening to everyone else's fear instead of your own inner knowing. So this can show up in so many different forms. Like it can be the partner who says to you, is that really safe? Every time that you mention going solo. Or it maybe is the Facebook algorithm that keeps serving you every single scary news story about hikers who ran into trouble. Like seriously, I don't even feed into this I get these kind of news articles all the time, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, stop showing me these things. You can literally mute them, by the way. There's like a ... thing. Please don't show me this content. Like, that is just clickbaity stuff. I'm not saying bad things don't happen to people, but it's like making you feel like it's happening all the time because they're showing you all of this different stuff. And some of it is even really, really old news that's just like resurfacing. So yeah, Facebook algorithms can really get into your head. Or maybe the friend who says like, oh, I could never do that. And it somehow makes you feel like you can't either. Like you start questioning yourself. And look, most of the people in your life, like they love you. They're not trying to sabotage you. What they really have is their own fears and their own limitations, and they're projecting them onto you without even realizing it. And I want you just to remember that. And, you know, that it's just fear wearing the mask of concern. But here's what happens that you need to be particularly aware of is that if you're not being aware of what's happening, you can really absorb those fears from other people. You can borrow other people's thoughts. You can start treating them, treating somebody else's limitations as facts about you, as your own story. And one thing that I coach women on all the time is getting really intentional about which thoughts like you're choosing to borrow or make your own, because our brains are constantly picking up input from the world around us, and what we do with that input is a choice. So you can hear somebody say, that sounds dangerous, and you can think to yourself, yeah, they're probably right. Maybe I'm not ready. Or you can think to yourself, I appreciate that you care about me, and I've got this, and I'm going to handle this, and I still want to do this, whatever that version of it sounds like to you. So same comment, two different, directions you can take it in your brain. So when someone in your life is putting doubt in your ear, I want you to try this. Ask yourself, is this their fear, or is this actual information, like real actual information? Because there's a difference between genuine safety concern, which we absolutely at She Dreams of Alpine take seriously and we love to address with real preparation and skills. And those are definitely things that you should invest in yourself for to be prepared. But it can also be someone else's anxiety showing up as caution. Okay, so you get to decide whose voice gets the most airtime in your head, and I want you to choose wisely. So I remember just kind of a personal example of this is when I was hiking the JMT. So the John Muir Trail is a through hike in California. I was hiking it with my husband in 2020, and there was a wildfire that popped up just south of where we were supposed to enter. We were going northbound, so we were entering the Cottonwood Pass trailhead, and a big wildfire had popped up just south of us, and everyone was freaking out. I mean, you could see smoke. I mean, wildfires are something you should take seriously, but you could see smoke from town, because we were already in the towns. We were kind of getting acclimated before we headed out on our trip, and I just kind of started going down the rabbit holes though. I was in the Facebook groups and everyone was canceling their trips, and they were sharing all these reasons you shouldn't go. These were people that weren't actually yet out on the trail yet. They were just people who had trips planned, and they were freaking out too. And I almost bailed on our JMT trip. I almost said we shouldn't do it because of all the panic I was absorbing and the fear I was absorbing from other people. And my brain was spiraling. And instead of trusting myself, I almost just said, I don't know, we shouldn't do it. And that didn't feel right. It felt like panic. But then, I got to sit with it for a while. I remember being in the hotel room and being like, okay, wait, what are my actual options? We're not in an immediate emergency right now. And I reminded myself that I am actually really smart and very prepared, and I understand these things, and I wouldn't do anything that I believe is truly unsafe. And we actually have more options than just bailing, and I can go to the trailhead and see for myself. And we had a safety plan and a communication plan, and we had all the things that we could do if a wildfire ended up escalating, and I needed to trust myself and my experience and my plan. And so Michael and I decided hey, we're going to at least go to the trailhead, and see how things look up there. If it felt like, we were most concerned, I think, at the time, because nothing was closed yet. We were most concerned about the smoke. Like, would it be too much, like unsafe at an unsafe level? And, for our comfort. And everyone has different comfort zones around that, right? But we went up there and it was beautiful. And we were like, this is, not what people were portraying online. And, it wasn't too smoky for our personal comfort level. We did bring N95 masks just in case. This is also around the COVID times. So we happened to have them. But the trail wasn't closed. There was no official closing or announcement from the rangers. We made sure to do our due diligence there. We had a really solid communication plan. We were hiking north away from the fires. We had a safety plan locked in. I had, my safety contact really well aware of keeping us updated on everything. We knew all of our pivot options. And fortunately, we had tons of options out there. There's a lot of bail off trails. And so we decided to go for it. And thanks to that self-trust, and take it day by day. Also, we were like, let's just go a day in, and then we'll go a day in, and then we'll keep going. And thanks to having that self-trust in myself and my ability to lean on my plan and my safety contact and my experience and all of those things, we got 12 beautiful days on the John Muir Trail that I will remember for a lifetime. And, I have dropped episodes in the past of our John Muir Trail kind of behind the scenes series that we did. So if you've listened to that, that we did eventually, another wildfire popped up north of us. And that one did close down the entire national forest. So we did end up having to leave. But that experience was so empowering to see myself rise above the panic and really trust in and lean into my own wisdom and self-trust. And that's a skill that you get to build as somebody who becomes a backpacker. And it's one of the most valuable life skills that you can have. And I think the outdoors really gives us a venue for exploring that. And it's going to feel wildly uncomfortable at first as you're learning to build that self-trust. Okay, so that's reason number 2. Reason number 3 is really practical, but many of you haven't made your goal a non-negotiable. And I see this constantly, the goal lives in this aspirational zone. It's I'd love to do this, not a this is happening. And there is a massive difference in the way you perceive your goal. So here's what making something non-negotiable actually looks like. You have the date that goes on the calendar first, not after everything else is figured out. You have the training walk and hikes that happen even when they're inconvenient. The permits get pulled even when you're scared that you're not ready. You put the deposit down when it feels vulnerable to commit, right? You have some skin in the game, right? Non-negotiable doesn't mean that there's no resistance. I still get ready for my climbing training days sometimes, and in my brain, I would rather just sit and Netflix and chill all day. So resistance doesn't go away. We have human brains. What changes is your relationship with the resistance. You stop waiting for it to waiting to not feel it before you take any actions. So one of my coach even talks about this, if you're really struggling with that, engaging in what she calls a dread sprint. So doing the thing you've been dreading, even when every part of you doesn't want to, not because it feels good, but because the result on the other side is worth it. And sometimes I have to do that. I have a goal. It's non-negotiable. I really don't want to do it. I've had a hard, long day. I'd rather just sit and chill. But I know I'm going to be so proud if I go and do it. So half the time you get into it, you're glad you went. The internal dread monologue was louder than the actual experience of doing the thing. So here's what I want you to think about. What would it look like to take your goal from the I want to category into this is already decided, this is happening category? What's the one action that would make it feel real and you feel committed? How can you put some skin in the game of your goal? Putting a permit application in, putting a deposit down, signing up with the coach or the training that is going to help you get there, telling somebody who will hold you accountable, putting real dates on the calendar, telling your partner that this is happening and you need his support or their support or her support before you feel fully ready. So make the decision first, build the confidence after. For example, like, my 512 goal, like I don't know how exactly it's going to come down, but every weekend I'm trying to get outside and I'm making it real. And I also planned a 2-week trip to the Red River Gorge in the fall, and booked the Airbnb and everything, like it's happening. And I've already asked, I've already made the plans, all the things. So make the decision first, make it non-negotiable, show up for it. Okay, reason number 4. You might be trying to do this too much alone without a structure that supports you or a community that supports you. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. So first, logistically, maybe you don't have a training plan or, a process, a clear progression of steps, and your goal just sits there as this like big amorphous thing. And your brain looks at it and it goes, I don't even know where to start. And it indulges in that confusion. And when we don't know where to start, we tend to not start. We just like kind of indulge and go deeper into that like not knowingness. So when Mary was on that coaching call, one of the things I walked her through was getting all of it out of her head and onto paper. Like, she was telling me there's so many things to do, every single thing that she thought of that she needed. She had a canoe trip, like a backpacking canoe trip that she was doing. And so I was like, write everything that you think you need to do for your canoe trip. Just do a brain dump. No judgment, no prioritizing, just like, what does your brain think stands between you and this goal? And write all the things, because when it's swirling around in your head, it can feel like an impossible mountain. And when it's on paper, it usually just presents itself as a list of steps. And those are steps that we can work with. I remember, and I tell my clients this story a lot, like when I was first going through my divorce, when I was younger, when I was in my first marriage going through a divorce, I was so overwhelmed by all the things that I needed to do to like make that final and move forward. And I spent weeks on like kind of this fence limbo state of like being stuck, and it felt miserable. And then one day I remember I'm literally writing a whole list down of every single thing that I think I need to get done related to this task. And we're just going to take it day by day. And I'm going to slowly check these things off. And that helped me so much. It's such a simple thing, but it helped me so much. So that's piece number 1. The second piece of that is, the thing I think we underestimate a bit is community. So like doing big goals in isolation is so much harder than doing it with, even just one other person who gets it and is supporting you. So I remember when I first started really pushing myself in climbing, I had all the desire. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but everything, what changed was when I found a partner. So Charlie, my climbing partner, which I can do a whole nother episode on how I've even thought about bringing her onto the podcast, because how we found each other was really the desire around the goal kind of led us to finding each other. But she was in on the goal with me, and we got to show up for this together. We're in the training together. She kind of calls me out when I'm complaining about how tired I am, and celebrating with me along the way. Like this weekend, she couldn't go with me. I went with my husband, but she was celebrating with me, and we got to be in on that together. I think the women who make the fastest progress in my programs, they're the ones who plug into community. So they post in the group when they're stuck. They come to coaching calls, not because they have it more together than everyone else, but because they've decided they don't want to do this alone, and they know how powerful it is to be in community, even an online virtual community of people who really get it and really care. I actually just recently had a client of mine inside the Backpacking Badass program Facebook community that we have. She posted last week about having mind drama around her solo backpacking goal that coming weekend. And she wrote, I have planned my first solo overnight for this Friday. I'm already having mind drama. My thoughts went to, don't share this in the group in case something comes up and you decide not to go. And I'm pushing back on that thought by posting in the group for some accountability. I realize that my brain is trying to find it out. And what was so awesome to see is like the entire community rose up to support her in navigating that mind drama and like reminding her who she is, reminding her how strong she is, like how much support she has from the community and that she can do this. And she ended up going on her trip. And just a few days ago, she actually posted again, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but she wrote, at the top, "Success. I completed my first solo backpacking trip on Friday night. I am so damn proud of myself. I've wanted to do this for years and I finally did it and I had a beautiful time." So if you've been white knuckling this goal in isolation, maybe this is your sign. You need people around you who get it and who are doing it too, and who will celebrate your micro wins and talk you off a ledge before a trip when your brain is spiraling. You are not designed to do hard things alone. Like, we do that in community, and we actually built our entire, program, the Backpacking Badass program community, around this concept, to be a place where you can get real support from real women who are in the trenches with you and want to see you win. Okay, we're getting near the end. Thanks for sticking with me. Reason number 5 is the one that I think is underneath almost every single one of these reasons, and the reason that you're feeling stuck or lacking motivation or you haven't made progress on your goal. And it's also the one I love talking about the most. I've done a whole series on this inside the Backpacking Badass program around what I'm about to talk about. But you potentially don't see yourself as the kind of woman who does this kind of thing, or you don't really believe it yet. Whatever your goal is, like, you're not really fully believing you can do it. So the gap between who you are now and who you want to be might still feel really huge. And this is at its core identity work, and it's foundational to every single thing that you do and the momentum that you have. So here's what I know to be true. You don't become an adventurous woman after you do the adventures. You actually become her first, and the adventures follow. So most of us have it backwards. We think, once I do enough trips, once I'm fit enough, once I've proven I can handle it, then I'll feel like the kind of woman who does this thing. But that's not how it works. The identity actually has to come first, even if it's just the tiniest seed of belief, even if it's like so shaky and unstable, even if it feels like you're playing make-believe at first, but there needs to be some seed of belief that you can do this, right? So with my big Misoji goal, the climbing goal, I'm constantly tapping into the 512 version of me. I'm showing up to training. I'm working on what I think about myself. When I went this past weekend to attempt to send my 511 B project, I saw my brain immediately. I remember Michael was like, "Okay, well, what do you want to get on?" And I was like, "I want to get back on my project. I want to send it." And then my brain was immediately like, "You probably won't be able to do it." And I recognized that voice. Man, our brains are such shit talkers. Even me, I work on this stuff all the time. And my brain already wanted to doubt itself, right? And so I talked back to it. I talked back to that part of my brain and I said, I definitely can do this. And also, there's no downside in believing that thought. I can do this. There's no downside to it. There is a downside to believing you probably won't do it, because you're going to make that a reality. If I believe more that I can do it, that might be the result that I create. So I re-tapped back into the 512 identity of me, who is like, "Girl, you've got this. Give it your best shot. We don't need to be afraid of failure anymore, because that's the only way that you hit the 512 goal, is by daring greatly and having courage and sometimes failing on the journey to achieving the goal." So put all of your belief in the goal, and we can evaluate what didn't work after that, if it comes to it. All of it is valuable. We can get so much value from the failures and the wins. So we might as well put it all in, I can do this, and then evaluate later. So see how I'm talking to myself? 512 me, that identity of me, it already is me. She already is inside of me. Those thoughts exist. I've been working on them a lot. So I'm able to coach myself from this place of the version of me who's already done it. And this is what I mean by identity work. I'm constantly thinking okay, well, how would I talk to myself if I'd already done it? Future me was talking to me. And I also remember exactly what it felt like to not even see myself as an outdoorsy person. If we really ratchet this back to the beginning of my journey, Before my very first backpacking trip, if somebody had described me as adventurous, I would have laughed. Like, I was an engineer, I was from Texas, I had never done anything like this. When I went and got invited on Half Dome, just because like I happened to be in the right place, right time, and I was also like in, like a life crisis, a year of yes, I needed to get out of my comfort zone. When I got invited, my first thought was like, I can't do that. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not adventurous. Like, I barely even hike. But, something in me wanted to be that. And there was the tiniest seed of belief that maybe I could. Maybe I could be that person. And after that first trip, I realized if I wanted to keep doing this, I was going to have to start seeing myself as the kind of woman who could before I had, any big evidence to prove it. That's how I was going to keep showing up. So what does this all actually look like in practice? It looks like I gave you some examples, but it looks like noticing thoughts you're currently telling yourself, like maybe I'm not fit enough, or I'm not experienced enough, or I'm too slow, or I'm not really that outdoorsy, and starting to try on new ones. And I'm not saying like make up shit that doesn't feel real for you, but like start trying to find things that feel like a seed of belief for you. I'm building my adventure resume one step at a time. I'm a woman who does hard things. I belong out here. I could see myself doing this. Like I think it could be possible is even like a tiny bit step towards the right direction. They don't all have to feel like you don't have to jump immediately to like, I'm the most adventurous, courageous person ever. If that doesn't feel true, start with something like, I'm working on it. I really want to be that person, and just start leaning in, right? Like, think about it like trying on a piece of clothing at the store. You don't have to fully buy it on yet. You're just seeing how it feels. See how the different thoughts feel in your brain and lean into the ones that feel good. Like so many of the women in my programs, like y'all have birthed and raised children. Like you are badass. You are strong. You have overcome incredibly hard things in your life. Like even beyond children, you have overcome incredibly hard things. You are a woman who does hard things. So in my mind, like your backpacking goals are inevitable. It's just like you haven't decided to believe that for yourself yet when it comes to backpacking, but you are incredibly capable. And here's the other thing. Every action that you take from that identity that you want to step into will reinforce this, right? You sign up for the program, that's part of your identity work. You pull the permit for the trail you want to do, that's part of your identity work. You show up for the training walk when you don't feel like it, that's enforcing your identity work. Every time that you act as the woman that you are wanting to become, you're sending your brain a signal that this is who I am now. Every week I've shown up 3 to 4 times a week training for my climbing goal. This is who I am now. I do this for my goal. Like I'm showing up and it feels amazing. Like it doesn't always feel amazing in the moment when I've had a long day and I have to go train for 2 or 3 hours, but like I'm feeling stronger than ever. I'm so proud, right? You can be that way too. That can start becoming your reality as well. So start there. Your trips will follow. Okay, and here is the 6th final reason I see women stall on their adventure goals. And this one is one of the sneakier ones because it often shows up, dressed up as other ones as well. So it's kind of layered. But maybe the goal feels too big. And when you get close to actually doing it, your nervous system panics and it can put on the brakes. So this is what I talk to my clients about. It's called pre-trip resistance. And I want to be really clear. This is not necessarily a sign that you're not ready. There are different things that we go through, and I could walk you through inside of our programs. That's like, how do we understand that nuance? But usually it's not a sign that you made the wrong choice, and it's not a sign typically that you should back out. Usually it's just your brain doing its job. And its job, by the way, is to keep you exactly where you are. Your brain likes safe, it likes predictable, it likes comfortable. So you hanging out at home on the couch watching Netflix is safe, predictable, and comfortable. So your brain is very good at keeping you in the same place and not making forward progress on something that's way outside of your comfort zone or current realm of possibility. So it will come up with extremely convincing arguments for why now is not the right time, why you're not quite ready, why you should maybe wait another year or do another training hike or get another piece of gear or read one more trip report. And if you haven't built a foundation yet, if you haven't taken enough small steps to start accumulating that evidence that you can do hard things and reminding yourself and practicing that identity, the gap between where you are and where you want to go can feel like a cliff instead of maybe a mountain. And cliffs can feel really dangerous, and maybe mountains can feel a little bit more achievable and climbable. So this is why I'm so passionate about building your adventure resume incrementally. Not because you can't take big leaps. Like, I'm a big believer in big leaps. Like, I love that. Like, set big goals, right? And sometimes you absolutely can and you should. And I love that. But also, every smaller step that you take creates real evidence that your brain can't argue with. I did that one. I survived. Actually, I loved it. So maybe I can do this next one. So sometimes when we're just starting, we have to go slow to go fast. That's something I always tell my clients. We go slow to go fast. The evidence accumulation is what is the part that actually builds self-trust and helps you kind of regulate your nervous system in the process. And self-trust is what's going to let you take those bigger steps without your nervous system completely losing it. So if the goal feels really immobilizing right now, if every time you get close to booking it or committing to it, and something in you finds a reason to like pull back, I want you to ask yourself, what's the smallest possible version of this that I could do first? I sometimes call this like my minimal, like when sometimes I'm talking to my clients, it's like, okay, you have your like ideal training plan, but what's your minimal viable training plan? Like the thing you'll do no matter what your brain feels like doing. And maybe that's like, okay, I just at least go for a mile, even though maybe my training plan said 3. Like, I want you to like at least start making steps forward of like trying to overcome those little moments in your brain that try to keep you stuck. And so what's the smallest possible version of this I could do first? What's the step that's just one notch outside of my comfort zone, maybe instead of 10? And start there and then prove it to yourself and then take the next step. So that is something that could help you as well. Okay, my friends, those are the 6 reasons. And another thing that's really interesting is as I look at these 6 reasons, like the motivation, the outside voices, the non-negotiable piece, the support gap, the identity, the nervous system regulation, there is one true thread that like runs through all of these. And I hope you noticed it as well. And that thread is your thoughts. So every single one of these is rooted in what you are thinking about yourself, about what's possible for you, about whether you're the kind of woman who actually does this or not. And the beautiful thing, which I hope I showed you and demonstrated throughout this episode, and is that you get to choose your thoughts. You have a lot more agency over what you think than maybe you thought you did. You do not have to think on autopilot. Like, you can look at what you're currently thinking, like maybe I'm not fit enough, I'm not ready, it's not a good time, I don't have enough experience, and you can ask yourself, is that actually true? Is this a fact? Or is this just a thought I've been thinking for so long it feels like a fact? Or what else is true? What else is true, right? Like, I'm not fit enough, but I can get there. Like, I can create a training plan. I can learn to show up, and I want to, right? That's also true for so many of you that I talk to, right? So many of the things holding us back are not actual facts about us. They are stories, very, very convincing stories. But stories are something that we get to rewrite, and we can rewrite them every day and constantly work on this, right? And here's what I know about you. You didn't start listening to this episode by accident. You didn't start researching trails or dreaming about backpacking trips on accident. Something in you already knows you are meant for this. There is a little voice inside of you that is like drawing you to this, right? You have a strong curiosity for a reason. And I want you to hear this clearly. Like, the imperfect trip is still worth taking. Actually, this is so interesting because my husband last year, he just started making short films. It's been a dream of his to do this, like make films and become a cinematographer. He has a photography, cinematography video arts and animation background already. Like he went to school for that and he's always wanted to do it, but it's always been like not realistic or whatever. And, recently one of his friends, and not realistic, I said that sarcastically for a reason, because, we always tell ourselves, oh, like, that's not realistic, right? And so we put our dreams on hold. And he's kind of been doing that to himself. But, over the years, like slowly that has been teasing away, and his friends started making scripts and they decided to go all in on making a film. And I remember he was kind of getting in his head about it at first because it wasn't exactly how he wanted it to be. It felt like there was too many variables outside of his control. And I remember just saying to him, this is like a few years ago now, because he's been kind of in this process for, 2.5 years now. But I was like, babe, you have to make the shitty film before you make the good ones. And I could like see his perfectionism was keeping him stuck from moving forward. I had learned that lesson the hard way because I had been an entrepreneur now for like 7 years. You have to get over your perfectionism fast if you're starting a business. I was like, you have to make the shitty film before you make the good ones. It's the only way. It's the only path. And last year they released their first short film. And, like he was super proud of himself, but I know to him, like it wasn't fully up to his like standards, but he learned so much and they got so much value out of making that first quote unquote shitty film. I didn't think it was shitty, but like, that the first version, the thing that you're going to look back on years from now and you're like, wow, my new stuff is so much better. But he learned so much from that. And this year he started working on his second film with his same partner. And he's already been telling me how much better it is and how much smoother it's gone and all these different things. And I'm like, that momentum was unlocked for him because he was willing to make the shitty film first and learn the lessons. And like, we have to do that. So same for you, like the trip where you're nervous or something doesn't go according to plan, or you have to make pivots, or you fail a little bit, or you cry at the top because it was a lot harder than you thought. That trip is so worth it. You're going to learn so much from it. If you stay open to the value you can extract from even the hard, shitty first trip, that becomes your momentum. That trip can change you. It can become your momentum. It can be part of your hero's story, your journey, the thing that you tell people like, wow, that first trip was a disaster, but then that led me to the next thing, right? That trip can become the story that starts unlocking a whole new world of possibilities for you. Just like it did for me. My very first backpacking trip on Halftone in 2013, it was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. And I had no idea what was in store for me 12 years later. Like, literally blows my mind. I was an engineer, did my very first backpacking trip, had barely hiked or camped or anything. I definitely wasn't thinking I would have started my own business in outdoor education, taught over 2,000 women to become backpackers, guided hundreds of women in the outdoor, like also be doing really rad rock climbing things, and the host of a podcast all about outdoor adventure. None of it was on my radar. So you do not need to be 100% ready. You don't need to know the whole journey. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to start and willing to fail. Okay, so this all brings me to something I want to plant a little seed about right now before we close out officially, because it is connected to everything we've been talking about today. We do have something very exciting coming in June. I can't stop thinking about it. I've been working on it a lot. It is our Solo Hiker Summit. So we have done a solo adventure summit in the past, but this year we're honing it in a little bit more. We're really focusing on hikers and backpackers. So Solo Hiker Summit. And I want you to mark your calendar for June 3rd through 5th, because this is going to be the thing that takes everything we talked about today and turns it into a plan, a community, and a whole lot of momentum going into the summer. I want you to have the most amazing summer. Summer is when everything happens. The trails are open, the weather is good, the calendar is full of possibilities. You have more time, hopefully. Maybe you don't, maybe things are crazier, but it's when you get to go outside more, right? And the women who hit the trail this summer are the ones who start now in these weeks leading up to getting ready for it, getting their goals solid, getting their plans in place, getting their community support around them. And I'm not ready to share all the details yet about the summit, but I want you to stay tuned because we're going to set your goals on fire at that summit. And backpacking, and especially if you're curious about going solo and like being more self-sufficient, it is happening this summer. I want you in on it, right? I want you to be part of this journey. So save the dates, again, June 3rd through 5th. Stay close. Maybe join my email list if you're not already on there. You can go to shedreamsofalpine.com/email. Follow along on the podcast. I have some spicy episodes coming up for you that I think you're going to enjoy. I'm not going to spoil it yet, but I just planned it all out leading into our summit, like topics I think you're really going to appreciate having a resource on. So yeah, get plugged in. When I drop the details, I want you to be the first to jump in and sign up. It's going to be epic, and we'd love to have you. So before I officially let you go, let me give you something actionable to take away from this episode. I want you to go back, think through those 6 reasons we talked about today, and maybe pick out the one that hit closest to home, the one where you were like, yeah, okay, that's me, and that I'm definitely guilty of that. I want you to write it down. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's the one thing I could do in the next 48 hours that would be evidence, maybe even tiny, like little invisible evidence that I am becoming the woman who can do this, who can take on this adventure, this goal that I set for myself. And it doesn't have to be the whole plan or training schedule or anything, just one thing. And I want you to do that thing. And then I want you to tell somebody. If you're inside of our Backpacking Badass community, come tell us inside of that community. Tell me on Instagram. Let somebody witness you taking that small step forward, because this is how we make it real and how we get back into our momentum and how we start rebuilding our desire again. All right? You've got this, my friend. I really, truly mean that. I'm in the trenches with you on the big goals. We are just getting started, and I cannot wait to share more with you next week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.